Hello, friends, and welcome to our June of 2025 astrological preview. My name is Jenny Sellers. I am the creator and founder of True North Empowerment. And each month, I love to send out these videos that provide a preview into the energetic shifts and changes that we can expect as a result of the astrological shifts and changes. So as we are making this video, we are currently still in Gemini season, but we will be moving into Cancer season later in the month. So that means we'll be shifting from an air sign into a water sign, which just means our thoughts and our idea formation and the energy that sits behind all of the processes of the head will be shifting to the heart this month. But before we jump into the preview for this month, I'd love to just take a moment to reflect upon May and to see if you felt the same way I felt, as well as what the astrological preview from last month suggested, which was we had a Taurus season in May that didn't quite really feel grounded like it normally does. And that's because of the rapid shifts and changes that all of the planets that moved through the Taurus zodiac sign kind of did it really fast without any, they just zipped right through. There were no retrogrades that kept anything paused. It just felt like we went straight from Aries season almost straight to Gemini season, which just means we missed out on an earthing and grounding energy that is usually present for us during this time of year. So reflect back on your May and just see if that felt true for you. That's the way I love to use astrology instead of necessarily being completely predictive of how I might feel or what might pop up. I like to use it in the retroactive kind of way to kind of review and see how those shifts and changes really showed up for me, and to allow myself to feel into that and to feel a little bit more supported by the fact that there's nothing that I really need to do. Everything is happening and unfolding as it should. And that retroactive glance provides some of that liberation and that validation in what I've been feeling and experiencing. So that's just some insight into how I like to use astrology. But on the flip side of that, as we move forward, there's a lot going on in June that needs to be shared. So, Saturn has recently moved into Aries. It did that on May 24th. So, Saturn, the planet of hard work, of drive, of boundaries, of timekeeping, of to do lists, all of that stuff moved into Aries. It moved from Pisces into Aries. And that's a big deal because Saturn might have felt a little bit lost over the last couple of years in Pisces. Pisces is the depth of the soul, it's the water, it's the connection between this world and the next. And when you take this hard hitting planet like Saturn that is so used to just going and doing and working and striving and keeping ourselves moving forward in the depth of that water, that everything intangible, it doesn't quite feel at home. So with Saturn moving into Aries on May 24th, we could have been feeling over the last several weeks a a shift into being able to be more motivated, to plan ahead better for the future, to really take action in the areas of our lives in which our personal charts reflect this shift from Pisces into Aries. So just be aware of that if you've been feeling more motivated, more driven, more inspired to take action. That could be why. But on the 1st of June, Venus conjoined Chiron in Aries. So, Venus, the planet of relationships, of our self worth, our self value, how we spend money, hit Chiron, which is the asteroid that is tied to our deepest wounds and patterns. So, just know that your relationships with both others and yourself may have been feeling into those deep wounds a little bit here at the start of the month. On the 5th, Venus moves into Taurus. So you could be feeling a little bit more grounding energy that it's a little bit delayed, like we said, because we didn't have a Taurus season while the sun was in Taurus that really had a whole lot of those Taurus vibes. So we could be playing catch up there as it pertains to our relationships, both with others and ourselves as it settles into Taurus. It'll zip right through, though. It's not going to be there for very long. Then the following week, we have a bunch of things happening. um, Mercury is going to meet up with Jupiter in Gemini. So that just means our communication, our idea formation, our um, inspiration to kind of be creative is going to feel this rush of energy around the 8th. And then Mercury is going to swiftly move into Cancer. So we could be looking at how our voice has affected our feelings, our ability to express our voices, how that sits with our feelings as Mercury moves into Cancer. And when it does this on the 9th, it's going to form a square to Saturn in Aries and then again to Neptune in a day or so after that. And that just means that there's a tension point surrounding our thoughts, our ideas, and how actually to take action on them. So just be aware of that. Then we have Venus making a square to Pluto, which could be also on the 9th, which could be just like a forewarning of some bubbling up of stuff happening in our relationships, both with ourselves and others. So be aware of that. On the 10th, Jupiter is a big deal. Jupiter is moving from Gemini into Cancer. It's been in Gemini for the last year. It will spend about a year in Cancer. So, Jupiter, the planet of expansion. In many ways, people like to look at Jupiter as a planet of good luck and good fortune. It just is a planet of abundance. It's the largest planet in our solar system, which means that it likes to kind of live big. Is moving into Cancer, which is the sign of our emotions, and it will be there for 1 year. Cancer is also the sign of our home lives, our family lives. It's our connection to our mother. So just know that there could be a lot of expansion in those areas for us over the next year. On the 11th, we have a full moon in Sagittarius. This is a big full moon. It has the capacity to have a lot of energy behind it, more so than normal full moons. And it's because as the moon is sitting opposite the sun in the sky, it's also kind of forming these squares to the lunar nodes, which are the mathematical points that represent where the eclipses happen. So, this full moon in particular, first and foremost, Sagittarius is a big thinking sign. Sagittarius encourages us to look at things like philosophy, theology, our belief systems, how we learn when we travel, how we learn from other cultures. Sagittarius really wants us to expand our minds and our hearts and our belief systems. And so a full moon in Sagittarius encourages us to kind of look at what we need to let go of, old paradigms that no longer suit us, all of that stuff. To accept newness in these areas. But this is happening as the moon makes its direct opposition to the sun in a square to the lunar nodes, which are the mathematical points which dictate where the eclipses happen. So this full moon could have a lot of eclipse energy from the March timeframe that we walked through. So think back to March, think back to what was happening again in that retroactive glance perspective, and see what this full moon around June 11th has for you in those same themes and those same patterns that you saw back in March as the eclipses were happening. This is almost like Grand Cross type energy. It's not exact because the degrees don't exactly line up. What that means is that there's a lot of potential tension energy as it pertains to the hopes, wishes, and dreams that we put forth during the eclipses in March, as well as whatever was transpiring. So some of those tension points might be returning. Just know that with the full moon in Sagittarius, it's encouraging us to expand our mind on any tension points that are brought up. Then, let's see, as we shift into the following week, Mars moves into Virgo, so the planet of action and motivation moves into the sign of new routines, of health-oriented ideas, of really kind of getting things in order. So we might feel motivated to kind of get things aligned and ready for the path ahead. But then we have a whole bunch of square energy happening throughout the rest of the month. And I'm not going to go piece by piece just because it would be too much for just a quick recap video. But just know that we've got, Jupiter newly in Cancer, making a square to Neptune in Aries. This is just expansive tension type energy as it pertains to our dreams and the intangible and kind of what our thoughts and feelings and emotions are speaking us towards action, if that makes any sense. On the 20th, the sun moves into Cancer, so we are fully imbued with Cancer energy, which is great. However, as the sun does that, it's going to make a square to Saturn and Aries. So some of those, you know, with the sun highlighting a lot of our emotions and our feelings around our home and family, with Saturn really urging us in Aries to kind of make a plan and a path forward for the rest of the next 2.5 years, as long as Saturn spends in Aries. The sun highlighting our emotions around this on the 21st can create some points of tension. And then there's this march of squares that the sun, Mercury, um, and some other planets are going to make to other planets that are in Aries. So just be aware that from the 20th and the 21st around until about the 25th, so that whole week's worth of time until the new moon in Cancer, there's going to be all of these points of tension. Um, and then on the 25th, we do have the new moon in Cancer. So this is a wonderful time to set intentions for our home and family lives, for our connections to our foundations, anything that we need to kind of support and lift us up after some of that energy that we will have just walked through. Outside of that, there's some more planets transiting into and out of signs, a couple more oppositions being made, but just know that June has the potential to kind of feel like there's a lot of this like false start type energy. We've got lots of shifting planets. If we look back to the November timeframe, Pluto moved into Aquarius. Then in April, we've got all of these outer planets, or what are known as the outer planets, making big shifts where they will stay for quite some time. So again, in November, Pluto moved from Capricorn to Aquarius. Neptune in April switched signs to Aries. In May, we had Saturn join Neptune in Aries. And then in June, Jupiter is moving from Gemini into Cancer. All of these are what are known as the outer planets. Uranus is about to move into Gemini from Taurus, where it's been for quite some time. So there's a lot of dynamic energy that's happening in 2025 with the outer planets, which just means we're shifting a lot of energy that has been present for us for a long time into new themes, new dynamics. And so, with those shifts, and then with all of these squares that are happening in June specifically, there's this rush of like new energy and feeling into some of those areas that are new for us, but we're kind of being pulled back by some of these tension points that are happening throughout the month of June. So that's what I'm kind of coining June as being this like false start type energy. You might want to take action, you might want to feel inspired to do some things, but then there's all of this stuff that's kind of holding us back. So if that's how you're feeling throughout the month of June, just know you're perfectly fine. You're right on time. And there's nothing more that you need to do as long as you're showing up authentically as yourself to really get through this energy. You just got to ride the highs and then kind of take those tension points as they come. So, with that, I wish you the very best in June and always, and I will see you next month.